One of the clearest signs that God is removing someone is when explaining yourself no longer brings peace. You say the words, you explain your heart, you try to make them understand your intention, your pain, your side of the story. But somehow, after every conversation, you feel heavier, more confused, more drained, like you gave them another piece of your piece, and still they walked away holding the wrong version of you. Maybe you are not tired because you are weak. Maybe you are tired because you keep trying to explain yourself to people God is already separating from your life. There are moments when God is not asking you to speak louder. He is asking you to release deeper. Because some people are not leaving because you failed. Some people are being removed because they no longer belong where God is taking you. And by the end of this message, you will understand why God may be asking you to stop explaining, stop chasing, and start trusting what He is removing. You keep explaining yourself because your heart still wants to be understood. You want them to know you did not mean it that way. You want them to see your intentions. You want them to understand the pain behind your silence, the love behind your effort, and the truth behind the story they created about you. And that does not make you weak. It makes you human. Because when you care deeply, being misunderstood can feel like another kind of wound. It is not only what they did that hurts, it is the fact that they can look at your heart, your loyalty, your patience, and your sacrifices, and still choose to believe the worst about you. So you explain. Then you explain again. Then you explain in a different way, with softer words, with more details, with more emotion, hoping that maybe this time they will finally say, "I understand you now." But sometimes you are not explaining because you need clarity. Sometimes you are explaining because you are still hoping they will finally care. And that is where your soul gets tired. Because clarity cannot heal a person who is committed to confusion. Love cannot force someone to value you, and your words cannot change a heart that has already decided not to listen. God sees how much energy you have spent trying to be understood by people who keep making you feel small. And maybe this is the season where He is teaching you that your peace is worth more than one more explanation, because the problem may not be that you did not explain enough. The problem may be that they were never truly trying to understand. Some people are not confused about you. They have simply chosen a version of you that helps them avoid the truth. That is hard to accept, because when your heart is sincere, you assume that more honesty will fix everything. You think if you explain it clearly enough, calmly enough, and gently enough, they will finally understand where you are coming from. But some people already heard you. They saw your effort. They saw your patience. They saw how many times you tried to fix what was breaking. They know enough to understand your heart. But understanding you would require them to admit where they hurt you, and not everyone is ready to do that. Some people need you to be the problem so they do not have to face what they did. They need your silence to look like guilt. They need your distance to look like pride. They need your boundaries to look like attitude. Because if they admitted the truth, they would also have to admit that you were not asking for too much. You were asking for respect. You were asking for honesty. You were asking for peace. And this is why explaining yourself keeps draining you. You are not speaking to someone who wants understanding. You are speaking to someone who wants control over the story. You cannot explain truth to someone who is more committed to control than understanding. And once God starts showing you that, He also starts showing you why the door is closing. Because when someone keeps twisting your words, misreading your heart, and using your explanations as more material against you, God is not asking you to argue harder. He is asking you to pay attention. That loss of peace is not random. It may be the sign that God is removing them. God does not always remove people with a loud ending. Sometimes He removes them by removing your peace. The conversation that once felt normal starts feeling heavy. The message you used to answer quickly now makes your stomach tighten. Their name appears on your phone, and before you even read the words, your spirit already feels tired. That is not random. Sometimes God lets your peace become the warning, because when someone is no longer assigned to your next season, their access may begin to feel uncomfortable. What once felt familiar starts feeling draining. What once felt safe starts feeling confusing. What once felt like connection starts feeling like pressure. And this is where many people make the mistake. They keep trying to fix what God is trying to finish. They keep explaining, hoping peace will come back. They keep giving chances, hoping the old connection will return. They keep blaming themselves, wondering if they are being too sensitive, too emotional, or too difficult. But sometimes the heaviness is not your weakness. Sometimes the heaviness is discernment. God may be showing you that the relationship has shifted, the grace for that connection has lifted, the season has changed, and the peace you keep trying to find there is now waiting on the other side of obedience. When God is removing someone, the same access that once felt familiar may start feeling heavy. So pay attention to what drains your spirit. Pay attention to what pulls you away from prayer. Pay attention to who makes you feel confused after every conversation. Pay attention to the people who only bring peace when you silence your own pain. Because God is not the author of confusion. And if this message is speaking to your season, subscribe for more videos that help you heal, stay silent, and trust what God is doing. Stopping the explanation does not mean you are being cold. It may mean you are finally obeying. Silence is not always pride. Sometimes silence is obedience. There are moments when people will call you cold because you stopped explaining. They will call you distant because you stopped chasing. They will call you arrogant because you no longer give them unlimited access to your emotions. But they do not see what God is doing in your heart. They do not see the nights you prayed instead of responding. They do not see how many times you wanted to defend yourself but felt God whisper, "Be still." They do not see how much strength it took to walk away without proving your pain, your loyalty, or your side of the story. Silence does not mean you hate them. Silence does not mean you have no feelings. Silence does not mean you are guilty. Sometimes silence simply means you have finally stopped placing your peace in the hands of people who kept breaking it. Even Jesus did not answer every accusation. There were moments when false words were spoken against him, and he remained silent, not because he was weak, not because he had no truth, but because he knew his assignment was bigger than defending himself to people who had already rejected the truth. That is spiritual maturity. Knowing when to speak is wisdom. Knowing when to be silent is also wisdom, because some conversations are not doors to healing. They are trapped back into confusion. Some explanations do not bring peace. They only reopen wounds. Some people are not asking questions because they want truth. They are asking because they want another chance to pull you into the same cycle. So when God tells you to be quiet, obey. Let your silence become surrender. Let your peace become your answer. Let God defend what your words cannot fix. Because not every silence is weakness. Some silence is faith. But the next step is even harder. You must stop chasing closure from doors God has already closed. Stop chasing closure from doors God already closed. Because sometimes you keep going back, not because the relationship is healthy, but because your heart wants the ending to make sense. You want one final conversation, one honest apology, one moment where they finally admit what they did, understand how it hurt you, and see the damage they caused. But what if that moment never comes? What if the apology is delayed? What if the truth is denied? What if the person who hurt you never becomes mature enough to give you the closure you keep waiting for? You still have permission to heal. The apology may never come, but your peace can still return. Sometimes closure is not another message. Sometimes closure is accepting what God already revealed. It is realizing that the pattern was the answer. The confusion was the answer. The constant heaviness was the answer. The lack of peace was the answer. You do not need to keep reopening a wound just to prove that it hurt. So write the message if you need to, but do not send it from panic. Pray before you reply. Breathe before you react. Ask yourself, is this peace leading me or is pain pulling me? Let your actions become your answer. Let your distance become wisdom. Let God handle your name. Because when God closes a door, your healing begins when you stop standing in front of it, begging it to open again. And once you stop explaining yourself to people God is removing, something powerful begins to happen inside you. When you stop explaining yourself to people God is removing, your peace starts coming back. Not all at once, but slowly. You begin to notice that your mind is not as crowded. Your heart is not racing every time your phone lights up. You are no longer spending hours rehearsing conversations that only leave you more wounded. You are no longer giving your energy to people who keep turning your honesty into another argument. And in that quiet space, you begin to hear God more clearly. Because explaining to the wrong people can become noise. It fills your mind with defense, fear, guilt, and confusion. But when you stop fighting to be understood by those who are committed to misunderstanding you, your spirit finally has room to breathe. You become harder to manipulate. You become harder to pull back into old cycles. You become harder to control with guilt, silence, distance, or false stories. And that is not bitterness. That is growth. You are learning that your identity is not held in their opinion. Your future is not delayed by their misunderstanding. Your worth is not reduced because someone chose not to value you correctly. When you stop explaining yourself to the wrong people, you start hearing God more clearly about the right direction. You begin to move with peace. You begin to protect your heart. You begin to understand that not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life just because they once had access to you. And the most powerful part is this: you no longer need them to understand in order for you to heal. You can release them without hating them. You can forgive them without returning. You can walk away without proving every point. Because God is not asking you to win the argument. He is asking you to protect your peace. And now it is time to release the need to be understood by everyone. So stop explaining yourself to people God is removing. You do not have to keep defending your heart to people who already decided not to see it clearly. You do not have to keep proving your pain to people who benefited from ignoring it. You do not have to keep giving your peace away just to correct a story God already knows the truth about. Let them misunderstand. Let them walk away. Let God reveal what needs to be revealed in His time. Your assignment is not to chase every person who leaves. Your assignment is to obey God, protect your peace, and trust that what He removes is not always a loss. Sometimes it is mercy. So pray this in your heart. Lord, help me stop explaining what you are asking me to release. Give me peace when I am misunderstood. Give me wisdom when I want to respond. Give me strength to walk away from what you are removing it. Heal the part of me that still wants approval from people who cannot see my heart clearly. Teach me to trust you, trust more than I do one more conversation. Because God is not asking you to prove yourself to people He is removing. He is asking you to trust Him enough to let them go. And if this message spoke to your heart, watch the next video, Why God Removed Them Before Your Breakthrough.